Do you know the difference between a VA internal DBQ and a VA public DBQ? Stick around, and today I'll show you the difference. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dwayne Kimball, owner and founder of KMD89 VA Claims Consulting, United States Army veteran, and retired VA rating specialist. In today's video, I am going to share with you and explain to you the difference between an internal VA DBQ and a public DBQ. Now, before we get into today's video, if you are a veteran looking to have a DBQ done and nexus statement, and you have your VA claims folder on CD, access to My Healthy Vet, if you get any treatment at the VA, contact me and I'll explain your options, okay? But today's video, I have a few slides that I want to share with you. A lot of veterans are unaware of an internal DBQ and a public DBQ for the VA. I've seen this back when they first put them back on their websites, and looking at some internal DBQs, I noticed some differences that I think you should be aware of, okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the first the first slide, slide number one. Here in slide number one, this is a VA's internal DBQ for an exam request. So every time a veteran submits a claim and a CMP exam is needed, that VA employee has to submit a request, okay? And here's some information on the first page at the top of this internal DBQ, and it asks, is this questionnaire being completed in conjunction with a VA 21-2507 CMP examination request? Now, you may ask yourself, Dwayne, what is a VA form 21-2507? This is something you as the vet may never see unless you have a copy of your VA claims folder. And that VA form 21-2507 is a VA exam request. And that exam request is what the VA sends to QTC, LHI, Optimum Services, VES, whatever, to say, hey, we need you to conduct an exam. We need you to conduct this type of exam. And we need this particular medical opinion. So, VA claim language. If you ever call the VA 800 number and you want to know, hey, what exam did they request? What medical opinion did they request? When you call that 800 number, you can ask them, hey, can you look at the recent VA 21-2507 CMP exam request and let me know what condition was requested and what type of medical opinion, all right? Now, with that being said, the answer is yes. How was examination completed? In person, records reviewed, okay? Other, please specify in comments. Now, slide number two. Let's take a look at the VA's public DBQ for exam requests. It's a little bit different, okay? And it asks, are you completing a disability benefit questionnaire at the request of veteran or claimant or other, okay? More than likely to be due to the veteran's request. Are you a VA healthcare provider? Now, why didn't they ask that on the internal DBQ when that request is going to a provider that is not a VA provider, okay? Maybe they may say, okay, well, we already know they're not healthcare providers, and we want to know if your doctor is a healthcare provider. But what difference does it make? You're sending it, on the internal DBQ, you're sending it to a non-healthcare provider, so who cares? As long as the person that's completing the DBQ is qualified, all right? Second question, is the veteran regularly seen as a patient in your clinic? Now, veterans, you should take a moment and pause and think about this, because guess what? It's not on their internal DBQs. They don't care if their CMP examiner has not regularly seen you, so why should they care for a public private provider that completes this public DBQ, okay? As long as they complete it the right way. And then the M21 38 CFR it states, who can complete it, how it needs to be completed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? So as long as you're doing it the right way, who cares how regularly they've been seen? Because if you go to their CMP exam, their doctor does not regularly see you. So it seems like they're holding a private provider to a higher standard. Then it says, was the veteran examined in person? Yes or no? Now, keep in mind, you go to a private doctor, yeah, some exams definitely need to be done in person. And one example that jumps out is musculoskeletal, okay? Range of motion. It has to be tested by a goniometer. You can't do that by video, all right? Slide number 3. Here's slide number 3. This is the VA's Internal DBQ evidence section. Evidence review, not requested, VA claims folder, hard copy, paper, claims file, VA e-folder, VA electronic health record. Now, this is internal. This is internal. These are the questions that they're asking, all right? Now, slide number 4. This is the VA's Public DBQ evidence section, all right? It doesn't ask those same questions. States no records were reviewed. If they check that box, they're going to say, hey, DBQ is insufficient. Your doctor didn't review anything. Records reviewed. Now, why don't they have the same boxes that the private examiner can check like their examiner can check? Okay? So it asks, please identify. All right? So on that other slide, it did ask VA claims file, hard copy. And you may say, well, I don't have a hard copy. Well, if you're like me, I kept everything that I sent the VA, and I kept a copy of everything I sent the VA, and I kept a copy of everything that they sent me. Before it was My Healthy Vet, I went to release of information, got a copy of all my progress notes that pertain to the conditions that I was claiming. And I had my DD-214, I had some other information, awards that I received. All that stuff is in your VA claims file, under, especially your personnel records, your medical records, all that stuff, okay? So if you have that, rating decisions, code sheets, or anything like that, you may have 95% of a hard copy of your paper claims file. Now, I always challenge veterans, get a copy of your electronic claims file. Submit that FOIA request. Submit that Privacy Act request. Get that on CD. That's your that's a copy of your electronic claims file, okay? And I talked about the VA health record. It doesn't have to be electronic. It could be a paper copy, because you can go to My Healthy Vet and print that out. That's what goes in this big space. But I'm like, why didn't they just make it easier for the examiner to check the boxes like they did for their examiners, okay? So they're letting you know we're not going to make it easy for you. But as I explained, you can have your doctor break that out. You could take a snapshot of the previous slide, okay, that showed the different items reviewed, VA claims e-folder, VA claims hard copy, and they can put that right in that section. Okay, now slide number 5. Here in slide number 5, this is the M21 reference. Before I go over this M21 reference, I did not copy the entire reference. There is some additional information. So as always, when I'm showing you slides, whether it pertains to the 38 CFR or the M21, I may not copy the entire reference or 38 CFR. All right, so you have the number and the name of it, so you can go out there and look at the entire M21 reference. But what I wanted to cover in this, and I highlighted in red, so I'm going to go down and start reading right above that particular box, okay? Use the table below to determine what action must be taken after receiving a DBQ that has been completed by a private non-VA provider and deemed insufficient rating for rating purposes for the reasons described in the table. Okay, so I only highlighted one. There are some other reasons that possibly could make the DBQ insufficient. But the one I highlighted says if the DBQ is missing information or contains blank or contradictory values in fields that are relevant to the rating activity. Then attempt to contact the certifying provider by telephone to resolve insufficiencies. Now, I can tell you 9.9% out of 10, they will not make that call. They're going to schedule a CMP exam with their examiner. Okay, so the reason why I'm showing you this is because as it pertains to those other slides, and especially the evidence section, these DBQs have to be completed correctly. They have to be sufficient and actionable. Okay, and also what this is telling you that non-VA providers can complete DBQs. I've been hearing from veterans that some of the VA employees have been telling them, no, private doctors can't complete DBQs. I only heard it a couple of times, but if a VA employee tells you that, they are wrong. Okay, so just a quick recap. In those slides that I showed you, internal and the public DBQs from the VA's website, okay? If you had a CMP exam through a third-party contractor through the VA, then you should have a copy of that internal CMP exam if you received your VA claims file on CD. All right. So I wanted you to be aware that, hey, there's a difference between the two. It appears that the VA is holding the private examiner to a higher standard. Are they regularly seen in your clinic? Okay, they didn't ask their examiner. But one thing that you can do to debunk all of that, get a copy of that claims file. Set your private doctor up for success in completing your particular DBQ. Make sure they have everything that the VA has that their examiner can review, okay? Because that's an argument, that's something that you can argue on a high-level review. Oh, well, your doctor didn't state they reviewed your entire VA claims e-folder or hard copy. I already talked about it. Go out to My Healthy Vet, print out whatever healthcare notes pertaining to those conditions you're claiming. Submit that FOIA request, Privacy Act request, and get a copy of that claims e-file, e-folder, okay? What other evidence do you have that you think that may be in your VA claims file? Any military records, any records, copies of records from your recruiter, copies of your service treatment records, just anything that you think that's related to your military service that you can give to that non-VA provider that's going to complete that DBQ, okay? So with that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and don't forget to share this video with your fellow veterans. And also, if you're a veteran and you have a hard copy or electronic copy of your VA claims file on CD and you need a DBQ and nexus statement, reach out to me and I'll explain your options. Thank you.